some of my best patterns that I've created have come after I've decided to put constraints on my creation. And if you're confused about where we are, let me start all the way from the beginning. So, through this process of doing my 100-day challenge, sharing one pattern that I create every single day, and sharing how I am learning from that, reflecting on that, growing from that, I have discovered that I have a pattern of associating ideas with one another, which comes with the territory of being a multi passionate person. You see links with different things that you wouldn't necessarily see if you are not a multi passionate person. But integrating all of that and communicating that effectively is a completely different enterprise. It's a completely different territory as well. So what I noticed was when I started creating service pattern designs, I used to draw. I didn't know there were certain rules to you that you can work within to get good at good patterns. So I used to draw patterns that were like millions of, well, not millions of colors. I do have one with with like that I used the pattern tool on Adobe to make it a mosaic of loads of different colors. But nevertheless, what I found was the patterns that I used to create were not as effective, not as good looking, not as meaningful as the ones that I did when I limited the choice of colors that I used within the pattern. And this especially came true when I wanted to learn how to create pattern collections. I used to always draw individual patterns and be able to draw an individual pattern, and that's great, that's wonderful, but without a theme to connect the pattern from like the hero pattern, which is like the pattern that's got like is like the hero of your collection. Um, like the highlight standout pattern. What would happen was I wouldn't be able to connect one pattern from the other to the next, and it wouldn't create a cohesive story. In the same way, when I'm sharing my ideas, my experiences and reflections and thoughts on YouTube, what I tend to find happening is that because I give myself so much freedom when I'm talking about the subjects that I'm talking about, I will come from one idea to the next, to the next, to the next, associate this idea and that idea and this idea until I have a collection of thoughts and ideas which seem different, but sometimes I manage to keep one theme running through all of them. Other times they just feel disjointed and feel a little bit like, what did I just watch? Basically. So what I decided to do was to give myself a idea palette. And what I mean by an idea palette is like picking certain ideas and limiting myself to those ideas within one video. And I hope that what this does is that it will create a more cohesive video. So instead of having 10,000 videos in one, you will have one video in one video that explains an idea, a topic that talks about a story from start to finish without going around the zoo and seeing all the different animals of ideas before landing the boat or the plane or the idea, as it were. And what did this teach me about how creativity works? Sometimes the freedom that we are pursuing, or the freedom that I'm pursuing, I find that in limitations. And when I say limitations, maybe limitation is not the right word in particular, but constraints. But giving yourself a construct can give yourself so much more freedom to explore a new topic. If you're researching something, it can give you it can give you the ability to tackle a blank page if you're drawing something, because you're not just going to the blank page with all of these ideas and all of these possibilities and all of these things that can happen. You are going to the blank page with a limited number of colors, limited number of ideas, limited number of stories, and then you get to draw, write, create away based off of that. That can take away the kind of apprehension that comes from creating from a blank page. And in the same way in life, for me, I'm finding that when I pursue my goals and my dreams, when I limit myself to a certain area, I'm finding that it's much more easier to explore this. For example, this 100-day challenge, if I just said told myself I'm gonna post a video every day for 100 days, I know myself, I would have been like all over the place. I would have talked about my faith one day. I would have talked about my my creativity. I would have talked about my multi-passionate self. I would have talked about my crocheting. I crochet this top, you can't really see it, but nevertheless, do you see what I mean? I would be going off on tangents with no cohesive thought pattern, and you would just be there watching and being like, what is going on? And there's nothing that, like, you won't get that time back that you watched the video trying to figure out what this creator was trying to explain. And what happens when I communicate without constraints? So I've already explained that when I communicate without constraints, I I talk about I'm making associations from 0 to 100 in like 6 seconds. And for me, I understand exactly what's going on because I'm seeing the connections as they happen, and I'm processing the connections as they happen, right? But sometimes when I'm communicating, I may start talking about one connection and then talk about the third connection. I've skipped the second connection because I was processing it while I was talking. And then now you're lost and you're like, what? What happened? So I'm deciding to put a new rule for myself, which is the idea of a limited idea palette. And that's going to look like sticking to one idea for the whole video. Even if I'm rambling, I'm going to be rambling about this one idea for the whole video. If I'm making associations, I'm going to be associating myself within the idea of that one idea, because I learned something new as I've been going through this journey. This is now day 5 of creating 100 patterns in 100 days. And oh, maybe that's a new, like, idea, like, name for this channel. But nevertheless, do you see I'm making associations even as we speak? And I'm tempted to go on tangents, but back to the limited idea palette. I'm learning that there is a hierarchy of things when you're doing things in YouTube. You can't just show up and, well, you can show up and talk and express yourself, and you've done your bit and you're learning and it's all data and you're growing from that, right? But as you're learning, you can't just, you can stay stagnant and stay like that, or you can grow and learn from your past experiences and videos that you've made, and learn that, oh, actually, when I'm creating something, when I'm communicating an idea, there's a hierarchy of things that I need to follow so that I can effectively communicate my ideas, but yes, communicate myself effectively. And that's something that doesn't come naturally to me. As I said, I have an associative, like, pattern recognition system that's always on and it's always on fire and it's always going boom, like, looking for the new next association. So to keep everything on, like, on point, locked in, the same way I made this pattern that I made today, which is like a yellow bamboo pattern. It was inspired by It was actually inspired by Sunday Love, because she bought a property in Japan and she called it the Blue Bamboo or something. And I started thinking about bamboos today, and I was just like, oh yeah, there's this blue bamboo thing. Let me make my own version of my bamboos in a pattern. And I was just reflecting on past experiences and enjoying the process of reflection. And that's what came out of me. And that's not something that would have necessarily came out of me had I wanted to journal about it or write it or speak about it or express it. It's something that came out of me as I was just creating, and here I go going off on a tangent again. But nevertheless, what does it look like to have an limited idea palette? What does it look like to have a hierarchy? So for me, I think that will look like maybe doing a video where I'm sharing the pattern challenge that I'm experiencing and the reflections that I'm learning from that. But I'm also sharing the stories behind some of the things that I'm creating and the reflections behind the stories and what I learned from that and the call to action, and then come back and watch another video tomorrow, kind of thing. And that's what that might look like for me. That's what future videos may look like going forward. And I really like this idea of like limited idea palette because it is so freeing in a way, because when you want to express yourself and when you have so many ideas going off, if you're a multi-passionate person, you know what I'm talking about. It can be kind of overwhelming to not have limitations. It can be overwhelming because you'll feel like, oh, why haven't I started this thing yet? Oh, it's because I haven't given myself a constraint, a limitation to work from. I've just given myself like the whole world is my oyster kind of thing. And now I'm overwhelmed and I don't know where to start. Having said that, how does this connect to my associative multi-passionate brain? It connects to my brain because instead of associating different ideas all the time, I think I'm repeating myself. Maybe it's time I round up this video instead of just talking about different what happens when I have different connections and ideas. So today I'm going to show you the blue bamboo. That's copyright. I'm gonna that would have been a copyright infringement, right? I'm gonna show you my bamboo pattern that I made, and I really enjoyed creating this pattern today because it really worked. It really took the idea of like limiting your palette, limiting your idea, giving yourself a constraint to work out from like it really took the idea from zero to the max, because I only had two colors I was working with. And the two colors I was working with was like yellow and a dark green. I even tried to draw a panda so that I could add it into the um pattern and have like the panda chewing bamboo, but my drawing skills are not quite there yet. So I edited that out, therefore meeting my hierarchy of needs for the pattern so that the pattern can come up well. And in the same way, I am doing my best to stick to this idea of talking about a limited idea palette in this video so that it can be a bit more cohesive than my usual pattern, my usual videos, and that it can be a bit more enjoyable so you can take something away from it and feel like this was valuable, this was something that had value, that added to my life, not this is something that took away from my life, took time away from my life that I'll never get back, right? So this is the time lapse of me creating that pattern. And just working with two colors can be challenging because if you don't do it right, you can end up with a flat pattern. But when you do it right and it comes out well, it looks so good. I mean, it's why some of the most classic color combinations like black and white, black and red, uh and other colors that I cannot think of currently work so well and can be so timeless. And that is actually one of the challenges of when you're creating patterns. You're always thinking about how do I create a pattern that's not like, oh my God, that's beautiful, that's great, but your eyes quickly get bored of it. But that's another story for another video. So I'm going to end things here. Thank you for watching so far. And if you're interested in more, like learning more about this pattern challenge and seeing how I grow as a creator, how I engage with my creativity, and how I reflect on that and explore and grow as a person, and eventually start running a business off of that, stay tuned and watch another video tomorrow, which will be day 6. And I hope to see you then. If you have anything that you want to share that you took away from the video, feel to comment below, and I will see you again tomorrow. Oh, by the way, my name is, okay, this should not be a by the way, oh my goodness. But my name is Tandy. I'm a multi-passionate maker and surface pattern designer, reimagining work through play/creativity. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.